Hello there, welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy, and this video is going to be a little bit of a ranty video, something I've been having weighing on my mind in the last couple weeks. It's always a topic that I feel like I talk about with my friends a lot on YouTube and in my inner circle, but I feel like recently I've been seeing it come up a lot more, and there's a lot of things that I've just had a lot of thoughts on. I figured instead of making it into a bunch of separate videos, I'd smack it all into one video and put it out for you guys. And if you couldn't tell by the title or the thumbnail, this video is going to be talking a lot about whether or not it's the hobby as a whole, this hobby that we love and we hold so dear, that's getting too expensive, or kind of out of reach for a lot of us collectors, or if it's problems within the community that we become blind to, and we kind of get, a little picky and choosy on where we want to put certain logic. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with this video today. I've been collecting Star Wars as an adult heavily for about 5 going on 6 years now. And my father was a Star Wars collector from about the mid-90s to the point I was born, all the way through kind of really almost the late 2000s. So my father definitely has some skin in the game. I've learned a lot from him over the years. I've had the opportunity to talk to people who have worked at Hasbro and were high up in the Star Wars marketing, like Daryl DePriest, who a lot of people know in this community, especially on the Star Wars side of things. And I've been having the opportunity to talk to a lot of other YouTubers and collectors of all different ages and generations who have, been in the hobby since, day one, almost 50 years ago, and people who have been in the hobby for the newer lines and things like that. Obviously, this hobby is extremely important to me. It's my passion, and that's also a reason I wanted to make this video. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread around on the internet right now regarding a lot of the topics I'm going to talk about here, and I felt like it was important to put my 2 cents in here and in my opinion, be a voice of reason with a lot of this conversation. So I have a few disclaimers before we get into, the video itself here that I feel like I really need to mention. The first disclaimer here is going to be, let's keep in mind that collecting and this hobby that we love so much is all unnecessary purchasing. We do not need Star Wars action figures as much as we think we do. We do not need Star Wars action figures and Star Wars toys in order to exist and survive. It is nowhere near the importance of spending money on clothing, food, water, shelter, things like that, the bare necessities of living. And I think it's very important to keep that in mind. I know there's going to be people in the comments of this video, no matter how eloquently I put things, that they're going to be mad at what I say and call me a piece of garbage and call me an idiot, blah, blah, blah. But let's just try to keep in mind that this is a luxury hobby that we're talking about, and this is all unnecessary purchasing that we're talking about today. With that, I feel like it's important to mention that if you feel targeted by anything I'm talking about in this video, odds are that you're the type of person I'm talking about. So just know that I'm not trying to offend anyone with this video, but if you get offended, it wasn't my intention, and I'm not sorry, because if my intention wasn't to offend you and you get offended, then there's not much else I can do for you, is there? And the last 2 disclaimers here, these kind of go hand in hand. The first one is I'm a United States collector. I only have knowledge on collecting in the United States. I'm not going to be trying to talk intelligently or in an educated way about collecting in Canada, Mexico, Europe, Asia, anywhere else in the world. I'm only talking about being a U.S. collector here. So I understand circumstances are very different. Prices can be different in different regions and countries and things like that. So I just know that I'm talking about specifically the United States here. And with that being said, I am not trying to claim any sort of extensive knowledge or a degree in anything like marketing or anything like economics. This is just me kind of spitballing. I did some basic number crunching. I will show you guys how to do the same number crunching that I did. I'm not trying to claim any sort of, superior opinion over anybody based on the number crunching that I did. It's just some stuff that I had questions about, and I did my own independent research on, and I'm going to share the conclusions I came to here. So the first hot button topic I feel like we need to talk about here are the price hikes. Ooh, price hikes. A very hot button, issue that's brought up a lot in the collecting community. It's been a thing for for a few years now, specifically with like Star Wars The Black Series and the Vintage Collection, Hasbro's two major Star Wars lines. And but I feel like in the last month or two here, I've been seeing a lot of like misinformation. And part of this came up actually, you know, the need to make this video because of all the negative I saw coming from the price of the Marvel Legends Maximum Series Spider-Man being $50, and I'm going to get into that, you know, a bunch in this video, but it kind of led me into a rabbit hole with my friends about talking about the price hikes conversation. So I did some basic research on how inflation works in the United States here, and I did some basic research. You can actually crunch all these numbers that I'm about to talk about here through the Bureau of Labor Statistics government website. They have a calculator, an inflation calculator right on their website. It's very easy to use, very user-friendly. You can use it on a mobile device or on a desktop, and it literally will just tell you how much buying power a certain amount of money in a certain year would have to a different year in time, and it's the same amount of money just converted with the same amount of buying power. I'm seeing a lot of conversation about the figures being too expensive and the figures, you know, being overpriced, and so it made me curious not only with how much the figures have improved with the detail and the engineering and things like that, which I will get into later. But I did want to mention, you know, just the price, the raw buying power. You know, the MSRP for the Black Series line in 2013 when it started all the way up until like the early 2020s was $19.99. And then briefly it was $22.99. And then we're sitting at $24.99 now for most of your major retailers. So I thought it was interesting. I plugged in, you know, $19.99 in 2013. I looked up what that would be today, and the price that I found was that $19.99 in January of 2013 is $27.58 in January of 2025. So considering that buying power, the Black Series line is still not caught up with what the actual number would be, you know, adjusting for inflation. Again, I'm not trying to say that the figures, you know, should cost $24.99 or that they shouldn't cost $24.99. I just am trying to share that, you know, judging inflation over the course of over 10 years now that the line has been out, going on 12 years, the fact that it's not considered up to par with inflation, I would say is a good thing for the community. Now, on the flip side of that, we take a look at, you know, things like the Vintage Collection line. The Vintage Collection line, it was $7.99 when it started back in 2010, and if you look at numbers now, you'd be looking at $11.71 in 2025. And again, I use January of whatever year I'm mentioning here for both, you know, the previous year and the current year. For TVC figures, I think that is a little bit of a disparity, considering TVC figures on most of your major retailers can be $16, $17.99, and you're looking at a $6, $7 price difference, even adjusting for inflation, over what inflation suggests, you know, the buying power would be. With that, I will, you know, say, you know, call me a shill, call me a Hasbro bootlicker, whatever. I will say there have been vast improvements. If you look at a Vintage Collection figure that came out in 2010 and you look at one that came out even in the last like 5 years, the amount of quality of the figures is night and day. It's not even comparable, in my opinion, with 90% of the figures that come out. Very rarely do I feel like a newer figure for that line is inferior to a figure that came out back in like 2010, 2011. So I would say that with the fact that I do personally think that that's a very steep price for a 3 3/4 inch action figure, I kind of have to take off my rose tinted glasses of the figures that I grew up with back in, you know, the 2000s and kind of look at the vast difference in quality of the figures that come out now versus then. Again, I'm not making excuses for the billion-dollar corporation. I'm just kind of sharing my personal thoughts here. And then just to look at Hot Toys too, back in 2011, I'll use the Utapau Shadow Clone Trooper as an example. When that was released on Sideshow.com back in 2011, that figure retailed for $89.99. If you look at the inflation calculator, that's about $129 this year. And so you're looking at actually almost double what the buying power would be. You know, the prices have almost doubled in that way for Hot Toys. But I will argue in that way, again, like with TVC, that the quality of a Sideshow figure from 2011 is far inferior to the quality of a Hot Toys figure in 2025. And I feel like that should be extremely obvious. If you've ever handled a Hot Toy, especially a newer one, versus a Sideshow figure that's, going on 15 years old, you're going to feel a definite change in quality, durability, just the level of detail on the paint applications. Even in the last 5 years, it's grown tremendously, the amount of detail and care that go into these Hot Toys. So I did just want to point out again, the numbers have really increased, but I feel like in the case of TVC and Hot Toys, it's definitely a vast improvement in quality. And Black Series too, and I think Black Series is honestly the most remarkable in that way, because Black Series has increased its quality so exponentially while also maintaining a really, honestly, affordable price for the buying power. With that said too, I think a lot of the issue with the price hikes argument has a lot to do with the insane licensing fees for Star Wars. I would direct you guys over to the channel Spectre Creative on YouTube. He has an awesome channel and talks very intelligently about the pricing of Star Wars and talks about things like licensing fees. And he talks about how ridiculously expensive the Star Wars license costs for companies like Hasbro and Hot Toys and whoever else to manage and to make figures for. But it's an exclusive license for a lot of these companies. So you're kind of, paying for the exclusivity along with the expensive, costs of the licensing. But it's a very difficult thing for these companies to juggle. And I feel like a lot of times it can affect the price. I see a lot of, we don't get as many accessories with Black Series figures as other lines do, like G.I. Joe for Hasbro's sake. Whereas Hasbro owns G.I. Joe. They've always owned G.I. Joe. So that's something that's very easy for them to, make figures for and give more accessories to, because they don't have to pay off that licensing fee. And I think something that is really important to mention is how the market has changed over the years. I do want to cite, if you guys want to go check out after this video, my interview with Daryl DePriest. Daryl's an awesome guy. He was the vice president of global market management for Hasbro, and he worked on Star Wars and Marvel for, I think, 10 or so years, if I remember correctly. He has lots of very intelligent things to say about the marketing end of Star Wars products, and he even said himself, back in like 2008, they had issues with like cost of production rising in China, and they had issues like the Great Recession. So things, real world issues, and can affect our little hobby here of Star Wars action figures. And I think that's also something important to mention. I really don't, what I'm getting at is, I don't think that Hasbro or Hot Toys or whoever else is intentionally trying to price out their fan base and their collector base. I think that they're just working with what they have. Again, I know these are huge corporations that make huge profit margins, but I do think that a large part of it is trying to maintain that balance of trying to make things affordable and also trying to give collectors what they want, while also trying to juggle real life and world events. On the topic of the more corporate end of things, I do also want to talk about things that I do think are unfairly priced and things that I do think, as a lot of my friends say, are kind of scummy on the corporate end of things. One of the things I really want to talk about is something that the community in the Star Wars action figure world has dubbed the Boba Fett tax. How, ironically, every time a Boba Fett figure comes out, it's always a deluxe figure, or the price is always somehow magically increased from the regular, MSRP of what a figure usually costs. Whether it's the Return of the Jedi Deluxe Boba Fett figure for the Black Series, or those Target exclusive Boba Fett figures that for some reason were $24.99 for the TVC line a couple years back. And it's just, every time there's a Boba Fett figure, they find a way to make it deluxe, and I think that's because of how collectible Boba Fett is as a character, and I think it's definitely intentional, and I think that that's something that is annoying as a collector, and as someone who loves Boba Fett, I think most collectors do. It's very frustrating to see how It's very frustrating to see how these companies will slip in extra costs on Boba Fett because they know more people are going to buy it anyway. Another one that really rubs me the wrong way would be the deluxe vintage collection figures from Hasbro being $24.99 at Target or Walmart or you name it. I think that is way too expensive for a 3 3/4 inch action figure just to get a couple extra accessories. Yeah, like the figure sets are cool. I myself, I have like the Jango Fett, the Ahsoka and Grogu, the Incinerator Trooper and Grogu. Amazing sets, amazing figures. However, in my opinion, definitely not worth $25. At that point, you're looking at the cost of a regular Black Series figure in the 6-inch scale, and I feel like that is way too much to be paying. Even as phenomenal as those figures are, I feel like it's just way too much to pay. And finally, I kind of wanted to talk about the Black Series Deluxe figures too, kind of on the topic of the Deluxe stuff. I don't understand why slightly bigger characters are considered Deluxe figures in a lot of cases. Like Wrecker from season 1 of the Bad Batch was considered a deluxe figure, and then all of a sudden Wrecker for season 2 of the Bad Batch was not considered a deluxe figure. Or another perfect example would be like the new Kalnaka that's coming out. I don't think that's a deluxe figure. There are cases where I do think a figure should be deluxe, like the Droideka. That's a deluxe figure. That is a completely new head to toe. They'll never be able to do anything different with that. And my other thing with it is like if you're gonna make it deluxe, if you're gonna up the price, $8-9 from your regular price figures, why not just add a couple extra accessories? Like Black Chrysanthemum is another one. Black Chrysanthemum is a Black Series Deluxe that I wish was more like the Vintage Collection Chrysanthemum Deluxe, where you just get a ton of extra accessories. That would really make me feel more comfortable with paying those prices. And now we're going to get into the part of the video where I feel like people are going to disagree with me here, because I really think it's important to talk about the collectors and how I think there's a lot of hypocrisy and there's a lot of nitpicking and there's a lot of cherry picking in this community, specifically with Star Wars, but I feel like a lot of this also applies to the broader collecting community, specifically in the adult side of things. One of the most frustrating things for me as a collector is the nitpicking when it comes to HasLabs. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the Black Series Rancor HasLab. I got really frustrated with how much collectors focused on whether or not they were going to back the Rancor based on what stretch goal figures were being included. I just personally find it kind of crazy that we are, as a community, making a $350 purchase on what $25 figures would maybe come with it if enough people back it. Specifically, I know there was a campaign on Ula being included as a stretch goal. And that's not to say that I also thought the tiers for the Rancor were kind of lame. But, if you were backing that, you should be backing it for the Rancor, not for the $25 figure that's going to be added when X amount of backers get funded. It's just something that really boggles my mind as to, the collecting community, judging, spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars based on one little figure that's going to come with that hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's kind of insane to me, and it's something I don't think I'll ever understand. Another one, kind of sticking with the Black Series theme here is the Black Series vehicles that came out in 2024. That was extremely frustrating to see how much negative discourse there was for those, particularly with the STAP, which was a Hasbro PulseCon exclusive for 2024, if I remember correctly. It was a STAP with a battle droid, marketed as being from Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, for the 25th anniversary. A $50 set with, creative packaging that harkens back to the original product back in 1999, unique deco on the battle droid, a completely new vehicle. I saw so many people saying that $50 was too expensive for this set. Now, hearkening back to my inflation talk here, if we're considering that the buying power of the battle droid is that almost $28 price point, you're looking at a $22 STAP. I don't understand how a vehicle that's as big as the STAP is would necessarily make a cheaper price than $50. Because again, there's a lot you got to take into account here: the licensing cost for Hasbro, the tooling costs, and again, I feel like it was really a fair price. I don't know why I saw a lot of people saying in comment sections and forums and stuff that it should have been a $25-30 release. Maybe for a 3 3/4 inch, but we're talking about the 6-inch scale. I feel like $50 was a completely justifiable price point. I have a STAP in my collection. It's a fantastic release, and I feel like it's very very much a head scratcher as to why collectors were saying that it was too expensive. Just something I just can't wrap my head around. And then finally, I kind of wanted to talk about, and I feel like both of my previous points kind of built into this, is the online bias and peer pressure that comes with that. I see a lot of people online that have really big channels. A lot of it's clickbait because they're just trying to get clicks and make money off their videos, but a lot of it's like rage baiting and grifting, and it's very frustrating as a collector to see entire pages that are based on nothing but negativity and just I can't wrap my head around it. You know, there's one thing to say, I don't like that release, I'm not going to buy it for myself, and I will happily share, what I dislike about something publicly on a forum or a comment section or whatever. But when you go as far as like shaming people who do like the product or are buying it, or trying to rally people and campaign against supporting a product, that's kind of where I tap out, because at the end of the day, I don't think it's that real, and I think that we're shooting ourselves in the foot as a community by doing things like that, by campaigning against things. We're just telling the company that we don't want them to do things like that ever again. I think that some people get caught up in like, well, don't support this character because we don't like the way this character was done. But if you do that, then Hasbro or Hot Toys or you name it is going to go, wow, well, we're never going to do any releases like that ever again. I mean, take a look at things that went to clearance before. For the Black Series, it was vehicles. Every Black Series vehicle, back in the day went on deep clearance. So Hasbro just didn't do vehicles. And then they're returning to them, and you have people campaigning against, how in their mind, how expensive they are. It's a very confusing thing, and I feel like it's honestly kind of immature for adults to be doing, to kind of, peer pressure other people into not buying something. I don't get it, and it's not for me to understand. It's kind of wild. On this same topic, I kind of wanted to talk about the hypocrisy of a lot of the criticism that you see online. One of the big ones that I see with again, I'm keeping with mostly Black Series here because it's my bread and butter with my collection, is when Hasbro started doing multi-packs pretty heavily again in 2024, I saw a lot of people online saying, oh, $44.99, that is way too expensive to be paying for 2 action figures. That's way too much. And, then they did a couple 3-packs last year. Whoa, $69.99? Way too expensive to be paying for 3 action figures. These same people that complain and, say that these multi-packs are too expensive, which, by the way, are cheaper than buying 2 or 3 figures individually, not even accounting for tax. These are just cheaper releases. I see all the time people online, accounts that are action figure accounts, they'll post this 2-pack is $44.99, too expensive. And then they'll go to Walmart and buy 4 individual figures at $24.99 each, not accounting for tax or anything like that. And now you just spent well over $100 on 4 figures, even 2 figures. When you account for the tax, if you buy 2 figures individually, you spent well over $50 with that tax included. Now you're looking at a 2-pack, it's $44.99. You're saying you don't want anything to do with it. I don't understand the hypocrisy there. Why is it that when the company's trying to actually give you a deal on something, we try to say that it's a bad idea, and then we'll turn around and buy 4 individual figures? Or the one that gets me even more is I see a lot of Star Wars collectors saying, "Oh, well, I'm not interested in that. That's way too expensive. $24.99. That's out of my price range." Well, then they'll go turn around and they'll go buy knockoff figures from Vale's Toy Store on AliExpress for $28, $30 a piece, not even bat an eye to it. And that's a knockoff product. They're not paying any licensing fees. They're not paying the fees that the official companies are paying, and somehow their product is more expensive than the official product. That's kind of where it's a head scratcher to me. You guys are complaining about the official product, and then you're paying up for knockoff product. It's kind of wild to me. And kind of speaking on a larger scale than something like 2-packs, the big one I see is the HasLabs. Every time a HasLab comes out, I see so many people. This is way too expensive. This is far too whether it was the Rancor, the Ghost, the Cantina, you name it. I just see all these people campaigning online every single time there's a new HasLab. Honestly, whatever brand it is, this thing is way too pricey. Oh, they've priced me out. They've lost me on this one. What's a head scratcher to me is, for example, if you're looking at a $500 HasLab Ghost and you're complaining that it's too expensive, maybe take a step back and consider how much you spend on your collection a year, because in a lot of cases, from what I've seen in comment sections, the same people that are complaining about the HasLab being too expensive at $350 or $500 or whatever it is are spending thousands, plural, thousands, multiple thousands of dollars on their own collections every single year. $3,000-$4,000 per year on their collection and building their collection. Then all of a sudden, this one item is considered way too outrageously expensive, but you're paying thousands of dollars for other stuff for your collection. And it's kind of just so hypocritical and so redundant to me to complain about the price of things when it's all unnecessary purchasing to begin with, and you're doing the same amount of unnecessary purchasing just buying a lot of smaller things other than that one big thing. And I feel like my last point I want to make in this video, coincides perfectly with the point that I just made about the HasLabs and the 2-packs and whatever. Something that I see a lot online is people saying in comment sections and forums, whatever, I can't afford to buy a $25 action figure. But then they're posting that they bought another $25 action figure or two other $25 action figures. If you can't afford this hobby, then you probably shouldn't be partaking in this hobby as heavily as you do, or at all in some cases. Harkening back to one of my disclaimers at the beginning of the video. Your necessities in life are food, water, clothing, and shelter. That's really your necessities to survive. And if you're complaining about, figures being too pricey for you, if I can't collect, I can't afford a single $25 action figure, then that's probably something that you need to reevaluate your budget, or some other issue that you need to reevaluate. It's not necessarily the company's fault or the company's problem that you, one single individual, can't afford a $25 action figure. And I honestly see so many people in comment sections and forums, they're so vocal all the time, reminding everyone about how they can't afford this hobby and blah, 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 and they got priced out. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be buying these figures at all. If a $25 action figure, a single action figure, is going to break the bank for you or put you into debt, then you shouldn't be participating in the hobby. It really is that simple. I think we as collectors, as a community, need to learn to know our limits, and we need to learn how to budget better. Because there's a lot that goes into this. All that nitpicking and that hypocrisy and that complaining about I can't afford these products. It all comes back to issues that you have as an individual. It's not the company's problem. I kind of talking about Maximum Series Spider-Man, like at the beginning of the video, I mentioned him a little bit. I saw so many big channels being so negative about a $50 Spider-Man, which, in my opinion, as far as volume of accessories and the availability of the articulation and how the range of motion it has, the detail it has, I think that rivals, as far as a domestic figure goes, it rivals import figures like SH Figuarts and Mafex. But I think we as the U.S. collecting community we want things to be so cheap, but we also want all the things. We want all the accessories for $8.99. We want all of the best articulation and all the best quality for $19.99. And if they go a penny more, then they're being stingy and they're trying to hurt us as the collectors. I can't get behind this narrative that the companies that are trying to sell products to us are trying to drive us out of the hobby. That's not the intention. And I get really frustrated with the community sometimes when I hear points like this being made. And I hate when we drive the narrative of new products being released and things of that nature, and try to villainize the company that's trying to sell us the products. I'll say it again. If you can't afford something in this hobby, then you shouldn't even be considering it. It shouldn't even be an option. This is all unnecessary purchasing, like I said at the beginning of the video here in the disclaimers. This is all unnecessary purchasing. You don't need any of this to be happy or to survive. And I think that it brings down the vibe. It brings down the vibe when those are the people that are being so vocal and sharing their negativity everywhere they go. I find it very frustrating, and I feel like it's something that needed to be brought up. And again, if you feel targeted by me saying that, if you feel like I've offended you by me saying that, it wasn't my intention. I'm just speaking my mind here. So ultimately, I guess my conclusion in this video is that, yeah, these companies, these big corporations that make these Star Wars toys and these action figures, they sometimes do things here and there that are scummy, and they sometimes do things that are totally a cash grab, and they totally jack up the price on some things because they know that people are going to buy it anyway. But I feel like there's also a lot of cases where that's not what the company is doing, and they're just trying to put out a cool product that fans will enjoy. And there's a lot of content creators in the community, and there's a lot of members of the community that are, you know, looking to start trouble and cause problems with every single release that comes out. Sometimes there's just cool stuff that comes out, and if it's something that I want, I'm gonna buy it, and if it's something that I don't want, I'm not gonna buy it. And it really is that simple. If you don't care about something, why are you going out of your way to hate on it? That's kind of where my conclusion to this video is. It's not worth the breath to be even bothering complaining about something and really just campaigning against something if you're not going to buy it anyway. If you weren't going to buy it to begin with, who cares? But yeah, that's my thoughts on this video, guys. Very ranty video, very, you know, different from a lot of the videos I put out on the channel. If you enjoyed it, if you agreed with me on any of the points I made, let me know in the comments below. If you disagreed with, you know, some of the stuff that I said here, make sure to let me know how much of an idiot I am in the comments below. We can have a conversation about it. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're not yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you are an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this video early. If you'd like access to early videos and monthly giveaways and more, make sure to check out the link in the description to that Patreon. If you'd like to check out my Star Wars product reviews, check out my Rancor Battalion channel membership linked in the description below. You can see all of those early, as well as vote on what I'm going to review next when I have a haul. And in addition to that, you can check out links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off. All units, fire at will. 1-2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. Gotta hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcement?